From time to time, a perfect storm occurs in the board game community. The stars align and two brilliant designers team up to make something really unique. A few years ago, Eric Lang, the designer of Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and Dice Masters, and Bruno Faidutti, the designer of Mission Red Planet, Citadels, and Ink and Gold, teamed up to make HMS Dolores, a quirky little set collection game with rock, paper, scissors at its core. Well, they're at it again, but this time they're tackling the ever-popular and always growing genre of social deduction. Secrets is a game of secret teams, bluffing, and influence for 4 to 8 players. It's the 1960s, and the Cold War is brewing. The CIA and the KGB are at each other's throats, while the peace-loving hippies just want to have a good time. Which team will you ultimately side with? Score the most points for your team while trying to keep track of which team you're actually on. So, like we do every day here at Great Oaks, we're going to teach you how to play. To set up the game, place the help sheet and these 2 arrow tokens in the center of the table. Remove the reference cards and the bullet cards from the deck. Place the reference cards evenly around the table for players to share. Then, shuffle the bullet cards and place them next to the central board, face down. Determine the first active player by asking who has most recently been abducted by the CIA or the KGB. If no one's talking, just pick randomly. The rest of the cards are the character cards. Shuffle them and place them face down near the first active player. Each game will have a certain number of CIA, KGB, and Hippie tokens in play. Just reference this chart to determine how many of each to use. Today, we'll be setting up a 7-player game. So, we will have 3 KGB, 3 CIA, and 2 Hippie tokens in the game. Shuffle the identity tokens and deal 1 to each player face down. Then, place the last token, also face down, in the center of the table. Finally, depending on the number of players in your game, you will each start with some secret information. In a 4-player game, each player will look at their own identity token. In a 5 or 6-player game, each player will look at their own identity token as well as the token of the player to their right. And in a 7 or 8-player game, each player will look at their own identity token, the token to the player of their right, and the center token will be revealed briefly for all players to see. After this point in the game, players will no longer be allowed to view their identity tokens unless an ability on a card allows it. So take a good look while you have a chance. Your goal in this game depends on your role. The area on the table in front of you is called your display. Your display starts empty at the beginning of the game, but is quickly filled with character cards. Character cards each have a point value here and an ability here. If you're in the KGB or the CIA, your goal is to determine who else is on your team and make sure that your team has the highest value of character cards in your displays combined at the end of the game. However, if you're a hippie, your goal is to have the lowest individual score of character cards in your display at the end of the game. The trick is, although you know what your identity is at the start of the game, many character cards have abilities that will exchange or shuffle identity tokens around the table, making this harder and harder to keep track of. Now that everything is set up, and you know your role, we can start the game. Play begins with the active player and will continue clockwise around the table. On your turn, you will draw and reveal cards from the character deck until you reveal 2 different character cards. Return any duplicates face down to the bottom of the deck. Then, mark the 2 revealed characters on the help sheet with the arrow tokens. You must now secretly choose one of the 2 revealed character cards for the offer. Offer the card face down to any player of your choosing. You can say whatever you want. You can even bluff or lie to coerce the player to either accept or refuse what you are offering. If that player accepts the card is revealed and placed into their display. If the player refuses, the card is then placed face up into your display. When a card is added to a player's display, its effect immediately triggers. We'll cover these in just a moment. Once the ability on the card has been executed, end your turn by passing the character deck to the next player clockwise. If at the end of your turn, you have 2 identical character cards in front of you, flip them both face down. These still count as cards in your display, but they will now effectively have a printed value of 0. Sometimes, the United Nations can intervene. At the end of each turn, if a single player has strictly fewer cards than all other players at the table, they gain the United Nations token. When the United Nations player is not the active player, they may interrupt the offer and take the card for themselves instead. In a 4 to 6 player game, the game will be over when a 5th card has been added to a player's display. If you have 7 or 8 players, the game is over when a 4th card is added to the player's display. When this happens, the game ends at the conclusion of the active player's turn, and the effect of the last character card triggers as usual. So, now that you understand the basic game structure, let's talk about the character cards. To understand the abilities on the cards, just know this. Green elements represent you. Yellow elements represent other players. And white elements represent the identity token in the center of the table. When a character card is placed into your display, you must execute its ability. The Psychiatrist has a printed value of -1. When a Psychiatrist is added to your display, swap the identity tokens of 2 other players. The Double Agent has a printed value of 2. When a Double Agent is added to your display, swap your identity token with the identity token in the center of the table, then secretly look at your new token. The Politician has a printed value of 3. When you would gain him to your display, instead, place him into the display of another player of your choice. Then, secretly view their identity token. The Journalist has a printed value of 3 as well. When a journalist is added to your display, you must reveal your identity token to all other players without looking at it yourself. The Diplomat has a printed value of 1. When a Diplomat is added to your display, reveal the center identity token to all players. Then, flip it back over. All players except you must now close their eyes while you swap the center token with the token from either the player to your immediate right or your immediate left. Once this is complete, players can open their eyes. The Detective has a printed value of -2. When a detective is added to your display, secretly look at one identity token. This can be yours, another player's, or the center token. The Valuable Scientist has a printed value of 5. However, she doesn't have an ability that triggers when added to your display. And if a second Scientist card is added to your display, you must flip both of the Scientists, as well as 2 additional cards of your choice, face down. And finally, the Assassin has a printed value of 0. When an Assassin is added to your display, draw the top card from the bullet deck. Examine it secretly and give it to another player. That player must add it face down to their display. They cannot look at the value of the card until the end of the game. A bullet card may have a printed value of 0, -1, -2, or -3, and is applied during endgame scoring. Additionally, each face-down bullet card still counts as a card in a player's display, which can trigger the end of the game. Remember, the game ends by adding a 4th card in a 7 to 8 player game, or a 5th card in a 4 to 6 player game. When this happens, the game ends at the conclusion of the active player's turn. Activate the ability on the final card and flip any duplicate cards as normal. Each player will now reveal their identity tokens and bullet cards and determine their individual score by adding together any points on face-up character cards and bullet cards in their display. At this point, if a hippie has the lowest individual score, they win alone. Otherwise, the players in the CIA and KGB add their points together with their teammates, and the team with the highest score wins. In the case of a tie, everybody loses. And that's how to play Secrets. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. We would love to hear from you. What's your favorite social deduction game? Post your answer in the comments below. And if you have any questions or feedback, we'll be sure to reply as soon as we're able. Secrets is one of hundreds of great games you can pick up for up to 30% off at greatoakstavern.com/shop. Click the link in the description for more information. Or just stop on by when you're in town to play this and over 600 other awesome games like it at Great Oaks Tavern.